Okay, looks like we might be live, but I'm just going to give it a minute or so just to make sure that everything is working. If you're out there, hashtag coffee break. We'd love to hear from you. If you have any questions, we'd love to be able to answer them. All right, I think we're going to get rocking and rolling as it appears that the technology is working this morning. So, welcome everyone. Welcome to the Construction CPA's Coffee Cafe. I am the Construction CPA, Lisa Raish. We are dropping the hammer on cash flow problems so you can build things that matter. Our topic today is mastering financial success with budgeting strategies for your construction business. So we talk a lot about budgeting and forecasting on here. And we do that for a reason because it is incredibly important in all businesses, but very, very important in a construction business. One of the really big reasons why budgeting is so important, especially with the jobs, is you want to understand if a job is really going off the rails quickly. You don't want to find out after you've completed the job that it wasn't within your budget, it wasn't within your expectations. We put a lot of emphasis on talking about job costing and budgeting for jobs and operating the jobs within the budget you've created for that job. But one of the things that tends to get missed a lot in construction is operational costs. So it's incredibly important to also budget out what your operational costs are. What are the costs that come back every month, regardless of whether you're doing anything in your business at all? They're going to keep coming back every month. And what is your budget for that? What you want to also ensure that number one, the jobs are within budget, but are you operating the operational side of the admin side of your business within what you've expected and what you've budgeted? So you want to be doing not only the construction project budgets, but you also want to be doing your overall operational budgets. And they tend to be, you need to look at them both, but you're not going to necessarily look at the two of them at the same time. So operationally, you're looking at whether you're within budget, typically on a monthly basis, like you would in any other business. But when you're looking at jobs, and especially when you're doing a number of jobs at once, you're really looking at that budget on a weekly basis to ensure that your spending is in line with what you actually expected it to be. So they're happening, but they're happening at two different times. And again, your construction budgeting and your budget to actual reviews are going to be happening more frequently than, say, your operational budgeting. And really, it is the foundation of any strong business, regardless of it being whether it's a construction business or not. You really need to be creating a budget for what you anticipate you're going to be spending, and you want to live within that means. And it's just like living within your own personal means. You create a budget for your home or for the operation of your home. You want to ensure that you're living within that budget because, like anything else, if you're overspending on that budget, you'll potentially run into financial challenges. So the budgeting is the same on a business side as it would be on a personal side. Is you want to make sure that you're kind of living within your expectation and within your means. So we talk a lot about, again, the actual projects and the operational. So those are going to be two different things. You're going to want to look at both of them, but operationally, what are you spending on? For instance, your overall, a lot of times clients tend to have their PMs in their operational costs, not necessarily in their overall job costs. So what are you spending there? Insurances, those tend to be things that clients don't think a lot about. It can get expensive in construction. So what are you spending on overall insurances? With more technology coming into businesses, what are you spending on your technology? Construction typically lags behind in technology costs, but it's starting to slowly creep up. So like any other business, where are you spending on technology? I personally love the little tools and can very quickly find myself subscribing to this and subscribing to that. And before you know it, you're spending a couple $100 a month on extraneous softwares and tools that you may not actually need. So while they may not be large needle movers, those are small places where it really can suck your profits out of your business really quickly. So, what are the things you need in your business in order to operate, not just you have to, it's your needs, right? It's not your wants, because those are the things um that will chip away at your overall profitability, is the things that I feel like I want, and it may not actually be necessary in your business. When you need to create. So when you're doing your budgeting, we sometimes use the word budgeting and forecasting kind of interchangeably. So you're going to forecast typically your revenues, and then you're going to have a budget for what your expenses are. So when you look at your revenues, you want to be able to kind of project out what you think that you're going to earn in revenue. So you're going to start that with any projects that you in fact have, projects that you have in contract phase or you've already signed a contract for, and you're going to start with that as your first tool, as your first item when you are projecting out your revenues. Where do you think the revenues are going to come, if this is a long-term project, where do you think those revenues are going to come from as you're working through that project, right? And sometimes in the beginning, we're not entirely positive. So sometimes we split it evenly over the life of the project. Again, one of the things that starts to kind of come out of that is if it is in fact a long-term project, where will you be doing the various pieces of that project? And what I mean by that is typically we're able to build out our revenue forecast based on where you think certain parts of the project are actually going to be completed. And so if there's going to be a heavy emphasis, again, on maybe there's some demo in the beginning, or maybe you're doing foundation work, or, you're building the structure and so on, what are the costs that are associated with that? And then in turn, your revenues will come from that. So you have the ability, based on the actual schedule that you've built out for that project. We tend to use a lot of the job costing products that our clients are using have the Gantt charts in there, where we have the ability to see where the various construction parts of the project are actually going to happen. And so we can build our revenue off of that, and we can build our revenue forecast off of that. There are going to be other aspects of it, the unknown pieces. How many more projects do you think you can close by the end of the quarter? And then by the end of the quarter, when do you think that those projects would roll out? So you start to make assumptions on what you have in your pipeline, what you've done in previous years, and you're kind of using a combination of the two of them, and you're melting them together to build out what you think you might actually be able to do on the next quarter, 2, 3, again, through the close of the year. What do I think the whole year is going to look like? So you want to be realistic, right? No construction project ever goes exactly as you anticipate. But what is the expectation? If it's expected to be a 6-month project, what parts of the construction are going to happen over that 6 months? How are you going to invoice over those 6 months? And you're building out your forecast that way. You're not looking to get to the penny, and you're not looking to be perfect, but you're looking to base it off of real things that you know, and then also creating assumptions about what you don't necessarily know, but you think could actually be real things. So for instance, if you have 3 projects right now and you're looking at it and you're saying, oh, well, by the end of the next quarter, I'll have 10 more projects. Okay. Have you ever had a quarter where you've had 10 more projects that you've sold within the next quarter, right? You have to use reasonable assumptions based off of your history and also what's going on in your marketplace when you're building out your revenue forecast. Revenues, unfortunately, can be one of those places where we can get very grand with large expectations of all this revenue that we're going to bring in, but you have to be mindful that really go back to what's going on in your marketplace. What have you historically done? What do you have closed? And you're using a combination of all those assumptions to build out your forecast for your revenues. Now, with those revenues, especially with the projects, You're going to have built out your bid, your estimate based on that overall project. And that's what you're going to start with when you're looking to manage your costs, right? So that's going to be the next thing. So now you've built out, you forecasted your revenues. Now, in terms of the jobs, there's also going to be expense budgets throughout the life of that job that you're going to end up budgeting it out, right? You're going to forecast out. Those are the things that are going to happen at certain times during that project. Those are the things that you're going to know. Those are the things that you're monitoring while you're working through the job. So you're looking at that budget to actual on a regular basis. Larger construction companies really need to do this on a weekly basis, especially if you have a large number of, you have larger projects, larger dollar projects that are extending out for a longer period of time. If you wait too long in between these reviews of your budget to actual, you have the chance of a project kind of going off the rails. So this really gives you a chance to monitor any overruns, as well as, are there any places where you're actually not spending where you anticipated? It's something that, is it specific to that one job? Or is that something that's now noticeable and you're noticing, oh, this one particular item we're actually not spending as much on as we expected over the last 3 jobs. So now you're beginning to learn from that, and you're learning from the projects that you've had, what works, what doesn't work, where the spend is, where you're not spending, and so on. The last thing that you really want to be monitoring is also your general business expenses, the operational expenses we talk about. Those are the things that you need to ensure that you really are in budget on, because if you're losing margin on your projects, if you're getting overruns on those projects, you're not earning as much profit. And so you have to be mindful of the overall profitability of the jobs versus your operational costs. Because if your jobs aren't as profitable as you expected, your operational costs typically are going to stay pretty stable. They're going to be the expenses that show up every month. Whether you do another project or not, these are the types of things that are going to be coming up. Those are the expenses that will be coming up and down that you really want to be mindful of as you are working through your projects. So your operational costs, unfortunately, tend to be the type of costs that are, I don't want to say dismissed, but not as considered deeply. In a construction business, it's really, in many cases, it's always the projects. So the projects running on budget, but really are the rest of the operations of your business on target, right? Are you overspending in certain areas? And if you are, why? Is it just because you're spending, or is it, is there an assumption in your business that changed, just like a construction project that might have change orders because there are changes in that project? Is there a change happening on the operational side of your business that you need to consider moving forward that's actually permanent and isn't just a one-off, something that you overspent on? The other thing is when you've built out these budgets, you now have you've got your project budget and your operational budget. You need to be flexible in understanding, number one, where they're ebbing and flowing, but where are there overruns? And if there are overruns, what's happening in that? So over the last couple of years, the actual raw material costs have gone up and down. Some numbers out of control over longer periods of time. You've heard the stories about the cost of 2x4s have gone up. The cost of everything has pretty much gone up. But I mean, again, you hear people talk about, oh, the cost of an actual individual sheet of sheetrock has tripled. Those are the kinds of things, when you're looking at your overall budget to actual on your projects, you need to be flexible in actually what's happening, right? And understanding and being mindful. If you're seeing an increase in your actual raw materials, you're flushing those increases into your next project, or you're looking at trying to flush those changes in, if you can, into the project that you're in right now. Same thing. One of the things that does tend to get not considered as diligently is when employees that are actually directly working on projects, when their rates go up or the costs associated with those employees go up. You need to take those into consideration and also be flexible about that when you are considering the budget of the project or projects you're in right now, as well as the projects that are coming up. And you want to make sure you're considering your change orders. The change orders are one of the things in many, we see it across the board in a lot of our clients. Um, those unexpected changes really can make or break certain projects. We've seen where it is an opportunity for a client to potentially get a little bit of their margin back had it been lost on another part of the project. So there's a little bit of wiggle room there. But if you're not monitoring your budget on these projects as you're moving through them, you wouldn't know that and don't know that there's an opportunity to do that as well. And so you're really wanting to look at and think about those things. We use a number of softwares, tools we use across all of our clients. Most of them are general business tools. So we use a product called Live Plan when we're doing overall business budgeting and forecasting for clients. We also use another product called Fathom. They are not the only products on the planet, but those are the ones that we like. Personally, I like Live Plan. It's a relatively easy product for us to go in and really drop some assumptions in quickly and pull a forecast out that we can kind of manipulate and make changes to and kind of do the what if this or what if that. The other thing is that there is an opportunity in a lot of these job costing products. If you are using yours, and we see a lot of times when clients come to us, they're not utilizing their job costing products to its full capabilities. So you want to make sure that all of these products are going to have, your budget or your estimate to actual. You want to make sure that that information is flowing through there properly so that you're getting the correct information out of it. So if you are utilizing and in most cases, these tend to be cloud related tools, you want to make sure that you're utilizing them to their capacity. We see it clients using a couple of different pieces of it, not really using it to its capacity. So we typically come in and we want to see them now utilize the tool to the extent that they actually need it in their business so that we like our client's job cost tool to become their Bible for the job. Instead of it being in their financial systems, we want to go into that project. We want to look at the various cost codes. Where are they off on some of these? Where have some of the assumptions changed on future costs? Really using that tool, and they are nice. They're real. In many cases, are going to be real-time tools, which will help you to understand what's happening in the jobs now, this week. After your team has put their time in for the week, you can see what happened in the prior week. You're really only like one week behind. So we find it very, very, very helpful for our clients to be utilizing their job costing products to the full extent they need to. And then we come in and we're also using our tools, our Live Plan, our Fathom tools to review kind of that overall, the business as a whole with those operational costs. What's over, what's under, what is outside of the scope of what we expected. So the important things to think about when you are doing any kind of budgeting is, you want to make sure that you know what the various components of your budget are. So with your projects, it's going to be your materials. Typically, it's going to be, your materials, your labor. Those are the big ones, right? So you understanding what are unique to your business or to your industry, making sure that you understand what they are, what those expenses are, and really tracking them. And then also when you're looking at your overall expenses, your operational expenses, again, what do you expect to spend? What it makes sense within budget for you to spend, and are you sticking with that budget? And then you also want to utilize your revenue projections, and that's also going to flow into what you think your budget might be. So those revenue projections need to be realistic so that you can create a realistic budget for your operational expenses. And like anything else, you're going to be constantly monitoring your job costs. And then you're going to be monitoring your operational costs to make sure that they're in line with what you expected. But then also your revenues are what they expected. And so again, they all roll together. If your revenues aren't what they expected, are there adjustments that you need to make in your budget moving forward, not just on projects, but on your overall operations to compensate for that? And with anything else, you want to make sure you're using We use a number of software tools. There are some great ones out there. They are much more functional than they used to be, and you can get a lot of really wonderful information out of them. But like anything else, you have to utilize them the way that they have been built, and then actually going back and monitoring your budget to actual results. Because if you're doing none of those things, utilizing all of the tools, the tools that we use for forecasting, the job costing tools you're using, all of it becomes moot. If you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. As always, we look forward to seeing you every Friday morning here at the Construction CPA's Coffee Cafe. Have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week.